Thank you for auditing the Always Positive New Music Review Show hosted by a French professor who just got a haircut and is very excited to talk about Stromae's new album, Multitude. Now, I'm a little bit crazy for Stromae. I talk often how I took a nap and I stopped paying attention to music from 2002 to 2018. One of the big exceptions was discovering Stromae in 2013. That was when I was going through my divorce, and music really helped me out a lot. And his last album, Riez, is one of the 3 perfect albums from 2013. The 4 perfect albums from 2013. Riez, Random Access Memories, Bankrupt, and Riez. So, I'm such a fan that my kids and I are also fans, and we went and we stayed at an Airbnb on the street where he grew up in Etterbeek in Brussels. We went and recreated the video for Formidable in the middle of the Belgian rain. We did a whole tour of Belgium. We're super big fans, and we've been starving. 9 years we've been waiting. 9 years. Now, why is it that an artist who was in his prime and made one of the best albums of all time, and I'm not using exaggeration, that's how good Riez is, why did it take so long for him to release another album? There's 3 reasons that I think are the reason why. Number 1, he got married, he had kids, he's sort of growing up, he had to make time and space for his family. Number 2 is he got sick, and he sort of is sick. By that I mean he took some malarial medication when he was touring Africa, which made him very ill, and it's got a rare side effect that can happen infrequently, but happened to him, and he apparently almost died. That's how bad it was. But then there's the other sort of mental illness issue, which he talks about in his music, which he talks about in interviews. Think of Bo Burnham. He's like the Bo Burnham of international pop. He got afraid of performing in front of people, he got all up in his head, and he even thought that he would never tour again. But it's the 3rd reason that I think is the most interesting, which is his perfectionism. He is such a perfectionist that he will never sing in English because he thinks he doesn't speak English well. He does. So I think, in the similar way that Brian Wilson could never really recover from Pet Sounds and his own crippling problems, but part of his artistic issues was that he could never follow it up. So I think he's kind of been in his head. And the question is, how do you follow up? How do you follow up a masterpiece? Hey, like this. You did, to quote Bo Burnham, Stromae, you did it. This is how you follow up Riez. Listen, I don't like to throw around the word masterpiece. I don't. I think in the first 4 years of this channel, I maybe used it 2 or 3 times. This year, every month has produced a masterpiece. Dawn FM by Weekend, Ants From Up There by Black Country New Road, and now Multitudes by Stromae. What he did that was so important was he grew and he changed without changing too radically. You see, the thing about Stromae's music that always makes him so interesting is he's always multiple things at once. He's a mixture between rap and EDM, between African cultures, European cultures, white cultures, black cultures, always multiple roots, which is why the last album is called Square Roots. And that's about dualities. But the reality of human beings is no one is Two-Face. No one is Bruce Wayne and Batman. People are 1,000 different things at once. So he went from just studying 2 things to studying the human being as multiple. And that's reflected in the music as well. I think the entire album mostly takes its cues from the song Ave Césaria from the first album, from the second album, from Riez, with its emphasis on world music and its emphasis on having difficulty placing where the music is coming from. So there's a stylistic change, which is a subtle stylistic change, but a totally necessary one. So usually, like Stromae's hallmarks, are dark themes and bright music. That's still here, right? Always has half singing, kind of half rapping. It's always half pop, half hip hop, half EDM, half chanson, more on that later. It's sort of all these things mixed up in one, and there's almost always a big old hook right in the middle. A big old post-chorus instrumental drop. Just a mind-blowing, it's so good every time you hear it. and it's always with a synthesizer. No more. So what he did was, instead of just making an album where it's these mixtures with these synthesizer hooks, he's introducing more influences from around the world. At least like 2 different parts of the world are represented on each song musically. That this is heard in the instrumentation, in the scales, in the rhythms, and in the synthesizers largely being replaced by other instruments. Before you go any further, you may stop watching this video if you want everything I say in this video to be 100% accurate. Let me explain. I'm going to get some things wrong. Because you see, I don't know all of the instruments on this album. He's picking out like obscure instruments from Asia and South America. I'm not going to be able to delineate all the rhythms the difference between a Uruguayan rhythm and a Paraguayan rhythm. There are levels of detail in this album which are so easy to misunderstand that it's unbelievable. Just this morning, I was studying, because he uses a lot of what I thought were African chants, because his father was from Rwanda. So I thought Racine Carré used a lot of African sounds. I just assumed these beautiful voices seen up high were African. No, they're Bulgarian. They're closer to where my wife grew up in Yugoslavia. I mean, that's just the kind of mistake that I might make. But before you click off, understand that this is intentional. This is Stromae's vision. This is what he wants in an interview, in multiple interviews. He says this is the point of the album. It makes it hard to put a finger on it. Which country are you in? To muddy the waters, I'm quoting him now, to muddy the waters as much as possible. Sometimes you think you're in Western Africa, other times in Asia, then Latin America. It's all mixed together. It's all a multitudes. That's bad English. It is all a multitudes. And it's funny because if you watch my channel, I always try to come up with a framing device, some kind of way to take us through the album, some sort of lens by which to see the album. And I couldn't do it for this one. I couldn't come up with just like one way to study it, one way to present it. And then I realized that's the point. There it is. It's a multitudes. That's where we are. Like, if I could do that, the album would not have been as successful as it is. I will say, when we're talking about this kind of music, one thing that non-French speakers may not understand is the importance of the chanson tradition. Chanson, C-H-A-S-O-N, C-H-A-N-S-O-N, is a musical style. It literally means song, but it's more of a mentality. It's usually songs in the third person, poetic, intelligent, having a sort of distance, having a sort of what we could call lucidity about the human condition. Seeing the way people are, not the way they want to be. It's mired often in realism, not so much in idealism, often against hypocrisy, often in a sort of ironic, detached tone. That is where Stromae has been, and for as long as he's been around, he's been compared to Jacques Brel, who's another chanson singer from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And one thing that I love about Stromae is a couple years ago he was asked if he thought he was the next Jacques Brel, and he's like, "Whoa, I'm not ready. I've only done a couple albums. I'm not ready to be put in that category." Well, Stromae, I'm putting you in that category, and I'm a professor of French. I'm a professor, so I am officially putting you in the Brel category. I wasn't ready to do it before, but we really see it here. He really is at that level, and it's partly with this subtle yet dynamic change from two things at once to a multitude of things at once, to this just being washed in the world of music. Now, there are 4 main themes in this album that I could suss out, and they're all filtered through this lens of the chanson. Manic and depressive. At times, the album, he's very happy and excited. At times, he's very sad. Quite often, it's a song about the disillusionment with love, all different sorts of love. Love between parents and children, between lovers, it's a very complicated album, very sort of dark album in terms of how it treats love. And most of all, many, many realist social portraits. To remind you again, if you're a first-time viewer of this channel, or if you've never really struggled with the concept of realism, realism is portraying life the way it is lived by people who are not famous, who are not rich, who are not privileged. It's seeing the world from the lens of the everyday person and sort of like pointing it out and studying it. It's inherently a political act because it's Instead of focusing on the rich and powerful, it's focusing on the lowly and the everyday. And it's also part of the strength of the chanson mode, that it can do that it can tap in and give you portraits of people who just don't get portraits. It's all these things at once. Manic depressive, disillusioned with love, realist social politics, very lucid, and it's all put together in an insanely strong album. An album which I've been listening to for the past 3 days, and I can listen to it. I can listen to every song 3 times in a row without getting tired of it. I can listen to the album over and over again without getting tired of it. I don't think I'm going to think it is as good as Racine Carré. There'll be a time, it's supposed to arrive in the mail any day now. I ordered it as soon as I could. I don't know if it's going to be as good as Racine Carré. It doesn't quite, like Racine Carré has that thing that some albums have where like every song is a single. Like every single song is a perfect single, is a perfect pop song, is a perfect expression of his work. I don't know if we're there yet with this album. Time will tell. With Stromae's albums, all 3, I mean, Cheese is a great album as well, his first album. It's a little bit more house. It's a little bit less developed than the other 2. You just have to live with them. Like all great music, you just have to live with them. I will say, this album is his most danceable to me. Now, I'm not a great dancer, is what I would say if I was being humble. I am a great dancer if I'm not being humble. But I'll tell you this. This album, with its complicated world rhythms of mysterious origin, with its instrumentation, it doesn't get you to dance, like... It gets you to dance like... just gives you these little grooves. Sometimes it's because it's a thumping, it's a thumping bass drum or a synth pop house rhythm. Other times it's kind of like a Caribbean thing. Other times it's like a South American thing. But the whole time, like you're dancing with your brain. You're just like oh, where's that rhythm going? It gets you to move. Feel free to comment what a bad dancer you are, Sky. I don't care. Because I know how good I just danced. Because I know how good I dance when I listen to this music. And it doesn't matter how well I dance. But I know I dance good when I listen to this album. And there's not that many albums that can get me to dance good. A little side note here. There's a lot of poop in this album. Caca. If you're listening to the album, that's the word for poop. It's a childish word for poop. And I was wondering, why is it mentioned so much? And I'm going to get to it later. And I'm going to talk about a Renaissance author, François Rabelais. So just wait for that. That's coming up. Poop Talk with Professor Sky. So let's go through the album. Normally I do like a stamp where I solo out one song for you to hear. I'm not really going to do that because every single song on this album is great. But what the hell? Let's start with the first track. You can listen to this. Pick any track off this album and listen to it. You'll see what's happening. This is a manic opening with this African Bulgarian chorus. I don't know which one. Hey, tell me in the comments, okay? When I did a video recently on one of his songs, I was trying to make all these points, then Adam Neely uploaded like a 20-minute masterpiece trying to say the things I was trying to say, but all smart-like, But this has got that African Bulgarian chorus, these triumphant horns, these great bloopy, boopy synths in the back that sound like raindrops. And it's just super triumphant. Just a super boppy song. I don't mean bop like it's a bop. I mean like boppy, like you just kind of feel that way. Some of the most like straight up rapping that you hear on the album, great ad-libs, them going woo. And this, in a lot of ways, I think this album is in conversation with Racine Carré. I think this is in conversation with Ta Fête, the first song off of that, which is another huge instrumentally like adventurous, exciting stadium anthem. Now, what's the song about? Overcoming his malaria infection? It sounds like it is, or overcoming his sickness. Is he overcoming his depression? Maybe that too. It's a general I did it song. He talks about putting 3 bullets in the head, one for his mom, one for his dad, and one for his grandmother, something like that. I think he's talking about each of his albums. And during the chorus, like the instrumental hook on this song is is the chorus going with like a kind of accordion? There's maybe like a mandolin solo, but then, Aye, me laddie. If you look up in the credits, there's a bagpipe. It's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy trying to figure out everything that's going on here. The line that I love is, as long as I'm alive, I am Invaincu. A great French word. Unvanquished. Undefeated. And so he's not saying, I don't think, like, I'm the best, no one can beat me. He's saying, like, as long as I'm living, I have won. Which is one of the theses of the album. Hey, are you alive? Are you watching this video? And you're alive? Then you have won. You are undefeated. Until the day you die, you are undefeated. It's a happy take. Next song is Santé. Oh, you want to talk about a dancing song? That's like the most danceable song I've ever heard in this channel. Now, I already made a video about this song. I'll include a link to it up there. It's like a 40-minute video about this one song. It's a long video. It's a great song. So watch my thoughts on it there. What I like is how it's a clear roadmap for the album. It really sets up a lot of these themes, a lot of these different rhythms, a lot of these different sounds. This is the song that Adam Neely did a whole video about its rhythm because it's so hard to figure out. And there's a moment where there's this whistling sound, which is like one of the musical moments of the year. I listen to so much music that I like to focus on moments, you know? And Black Country New Road has this moment in the song Concord where these guitars do this thing that's just the best thing ever. And this whistling sound is in that same category of just great, great moments. This really announces the realist strain on the album. It's about all the people who are uncelebrated and treated poorly in global capitalism, people having a song saying cheers to those people, and that's a theme that will be found throughout the album. So we start off with a manic song, then we have our socially realist song, and then we come up to La Solassitude, which has social realism and disillusionment with love. How do I even describe this song? It's like a dance hall rhythm, a sort of Afro-Caribbean rhythm, maybe like a thumb piano or some kind of percussive element making a melody as well. It's the most delicate production. Like, you have to listen so carefully. There's like a full orchestra playing here, but you could barely tell. There's like 50 people, like a tubaist and a violinist. The way that it's delivered, you hear a lot of French rapper and pop performer Orelsan, who's a friend of Stromae. I did a review of his albums as well. And you definitely hear the influence of him in his delivery. Now, what's interesting is this title, Solassitude. It's a portmanteau. It's not a clumsy portmanteau. It's a good portmanteau. So it's a combination between solitude and lassitude. So the whole song takes place in the third person, which is trying to give some distance. He says right off the bat, my name is Nicolas, and his name is not Nicolas. His real name is Paul. I'm going to get into that later. But what's fascinating is how gorgeous the singing is in this chorus. Stromae's singing is on a whole nother level than it was before. This is leagues better than the way he sang on Racine Carré. Like, I think he took 9 years just to learn how to sing better. It's this beautiful high voice, and he sings these lyrics over and over again. The life of solitude, single life makes me feel solitude. Living as a couple makes me feel lassitude. Lassitude means like mental weariness. So that's the idea of solassitude. This is the destruction of love or the demysticization of love that, like, there's no right answer. You know, a friend of mine once said, I guess it was her brother, said you can choose, in this life you can choose to be lonely or annoyed. That's your choice. You can be lonely or annoyed. And that's basically the theme of this album. Actually, the person whose brother said that is another French professor, and she's going to go see Stromae. So what's up, Karen, if you're watching the video? So the first verse starts off with this like feeling of trying to avoid loneliness. So it introduces this couple. What kills me is the boredom. Then we get the chorus with that amazing idea of solitude and lassitude. Second verse, we've been together for 8 years. On dort dans le même lit, mais on s'éloigne petit à petit. We're sleeping in the same bed, but we're getting further and further apart. And more percussion is coming underneath. Just I can't take the time to describe to you all the layers that are happening in this song. You just have to get headphones or a good set of speakers and just listen, just live in this album. I mean, it's funny because in some ways he started off so minimalist. You know, he did all these YouTube videos where he'd show you how he made his music, and it's just like on a keyboard. And now he has like a full orchestra and all these instruments, and he's using it to create such depth and layers. It's like looking at a black garment that has lots of embroidery details. And like, you just look at it, it's just a black garment. But then you look up and you're like, oh, look at that texture. Oh, that's what it's like. The problem is the routine. What that's what he says in this part. What kills me is the boredom. So he's bored when he's alone. He's bored when he's in a couple. Now there's no instrumental break in this song, but all the way throughout we have the performance of Guo Gan, a world famous eru master. Hey, do you know what an eru is? I don't. It's a 2-string bowed instrument, Chinese. And he can communicate so much sadness and emotion in this instrument. This makes me want to just find the music of Guo Gan and figure out what it sounds like. Because, you can just hear it and just go, oh, that sounds Chinese. And that's what I thought. I'm not going to put shame on you, by the way, or on myself. The way that we're exposed to world music is so pathetic and so weak. We're not given any real instruction into how to understand it or how to perceive it or how to work on it. So you hear something and just go, honestly, if you can say, that sounds Chinese. That sounds African. Like, you're doing better than most people in the world. Stromae is challenging us here to simultaneously be focused on othered music. And that's what world music is. It's othered, right? Like what? America's not the world? Miley Cyrus is not part of the world, right? Everything is the world, but world music is othered, right? So he's focusing on the othered while also incorporating it to the point where you can't differentiate, to the point where you're listening to a pop, techno, rap, chanson song with eru in it. The third verse, the woman leaves. He realized he made a mistake. He doesn't want to be with her. He can't bear to be without her. Reminds me a little bit of the line off of Donda, sad when she's gone, mad when she's home. That kind of, the same kind of problems of how do you be together with somebody. And he ends it with, my name is Nicola. So he starts and ends the whole thing in the same place, and you realize there's no way for him to be happy. It's a bop. It's a happy song. You're going to be dancing, okay? There's no such thing as happiness. You can be bored or alone. Bored or alone. That's what you can do. Next up is Fils de Joie. Filsdejoie. Wow. Now, I'm going to show you my initial notes on this song. You see what it says there? Weakest track. Now, I don't have a script. I just have notes. And so I look at these, and it's the same way I teach, right? Weakest track. Too much of a Racine Carré song. Feels like he's sort of in conversation with Carmen because there's a very pronounced classical element. Turns out he was inspired by the show Bridgerton. Has these kind of like imperious strings mixed in with a Brazilian funk beat, which I only know because he directly said it. Baile funk. I don't know anything about baile funk. It sounds good to me, but I heard it. And then the chorus reminds me too much of Maître Gims, who's a French rapper who's very popular and a very good voice and is famous for singing like this. He's like a rapper, but he like has a serious, like a no joke opera voice. Maître Gims is an amazing guy. He really is. I don't like his music that much. I haven't liked his music that much. I haven't really given his music a shot. But in general, I don't want to hear opera voice. It's impressive, but I don't want to hear it. So it's the weakest track on the album. But wait a second. Is it? The harpsichord on this song? It starts off with like boom, 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 boom. A harpsichord comes in on this song. There's strings and then harpsichord, full-on Baroque feeling, full-on 1600s feeling, and the harpsichord has the instrumental break, and it's like a solo where it's like the harpsichord's going and the strings are going, and you just, it's so good. It is such a good moment. You have to listen to the interaction between these instruments. Is it the worst song? No, Sky, you striped shirt dunderhead. Stop taking Stromae for granted. Stop taking him for granted, me. What, you think you can just make music like this? Oh my God. And I haven't even started talking about the lyrics. This is a song which might actually change the world. Hey, did you know music can change the world? It can. And the way that it changes the world is like this. You don't change the world by singing Imagine on TikTok. You don't change the world, I don't think, by doing what Rage Against the Machine does either and talking about the system. No. You gotta get there like this, with a delicate, interesting, social, realist portrait of prostitution. I believe this song may have the power to legitimately make the world better for sex workers. And if you've been paying any attention to the world as we have lived in it, sex workers need protection, need help. This is a song that is in that service, but it's in a very bizarre way. It's called Fils de Joie, which means son of joy. It's a play on words. Fille de joie is another euphemism for a prostitute in French. So it's drowned in empathy. So it starts off, the first verse is from the perspective of a customer of a prostitute. It's hard to be alone. The worst part is the first time you do it, and then the second part is trying to figure out when the last time is you're going to do it, about the loneliness and about the sadness of a John. The second verse is the pimp or the madame who's in charge of the women. I'm the one who helps them, cares for them. The third verse is a perspective of a police officer who's arresting the prostitute. We're both just doing our jobs, and hey, how about you find a real job? All the elements around the prostitute are described and seen as the way that she is in this position of just being used and misunderstood and abused. So then we get to the chorus. Now you're thinking this song about prostitutes. What's missing? The perspective of the prostitute. But guess what we're not going to hear? We're not going to hear the perspective of the prostitute. We're going to hear the perspective of the son of the prostitute. Mais oh, laissez donc ma maman. That operatic thing that I was talking about, it's actually important. It's actually good. Remember how I said the song is sort of in conversation with Carmen? Well, Carmen is an opera. And he did a song that incorporated Carmen. And this song is an opera. The way he sings, "Mayo," like saying but oh, like oh, anytime you use oh like that in a song, you're very clearly making a reference to theatrical ways of speaking. It's about this son who sees his mother as a hero, who talks about himself as the son of a whore, which is a standard insult in French. Why do they talk about this way? They're just dehumanizing her. The same people who dehumanize you are the same people who pay you to have sex with you, and the world closes its eyes. So we don't ever actually have to feel empathy for, we do feel empathy for the woman, but she's never in the song. Stromae says this on purpose. He doesn't want to include her perspective, but the world around her, because we can place ourselves in that world around her. Where are we in relationship to a sex worker? Are we supporting the police who jail her? Are we paying her money for sex? Are we manipulating her and selling her body and reaping the profits from selling her body? Where are we in this? And what do we do with these people who are abused? And the child that you feel sympathy for is just an extension of the mother who you should be feeling sympathy for. It might change the world. We're ready, right? We're already talking about needing to change laws about sex work and stop criminalizing the world's oldest profession. What does it mean that the world's oldest profession is a crime? Let's just sit on that one for a while, right? Okay. Next song is called L'Enfer. This is sort of another depressive song. It's nice sort of in conversation, I think, with Invaincu from the beginning. And I already talked about this song. I did a whole half-hour video on this song. Again, the African chorus to begin, that turns out is not African, is actually Bulgarian. So what's cool and interesting is the two singles, Santé and this, both have the dirty synthesizer breakdown. I think he's trying to welcome people into his new style by giving them what they're used to at first. That's maybe his most gentle singing. The next song, C'est que du bonheur, It Is Only Happiness. We really need to compare with Papa Ute off of the last album, his song about absent fathers, because now he's singing about being a father. We have some Latin rhythms or dance hall rhythms or both, and some claps and some plunky sounds and all going together, and some accordion all the way throughout. Maybe it's an accordion, maybe it's some other instrument I've never even heard of. Feel free to correct me. The chorus is just this awesome singing up high. Tu verras ce que du bonheur. This is very, very high. And this song, it's this is the disillusion of love as well, in a way, and it's also in a way it's social realism, in a way. The first verse is very flatly delivered, very ironic, talking to his child. You saved my life and I love you so much. Thank you so much for destroying your mother's body and being the reason that we don't make love anymore. So some of the trite realities of childbirth and the way it changes a couple shows up. The pre-chorus really sets up the chorus. He basically says the same thing in both. It's only happiness. So the joke is he's saying it's all happiness. The diapers, the smell, the vomit, and the poop. Caca. First appearance of caca. And then the song gets more interesting, because if it's just a song about how it stinks raising babies, first of all, it's not true. Like when you have a baby, you don't care about caca and vomit. It's fine. Like if you never had kids, you can't know. But it really doesn't matter. Like caca, vomit, diarrhea, all that stuff. Like you're just caring for your kid. Like if it's someone else's kid, it's gross. Like get that away from me. But if it's your own kid, the weird thing happens in your head where you'll be like up to your elbows in poop, and you'll just be like, just going about your day, washing your hands, just being totally fine. Then the second verse imagines the future of the child. Again, these amazing like humanist portraits of reality. First off, you will idealize me, and then you will have contempt for me, and then you'll leave the house, and then you'll have kids. There's this like accordion and thumb piano that appears to be going on, some kind of percussive thing happening here. And then there's like these weird little like notes and singing in the background, which you can only really hear if you're very, very focused. And then the third verse is the punchline, which saves everything in the song. You'll have a kid, and it'll go pee-pee and caca everywhere. But don't worry, your grandparents will be there. I'll be there. And I'll help you with your kids. And I'll go poo-poo, and I'll go pee-pee in my pants. And you can laugh, but it will happen to you as well. The circle of life, the circle of caretaking. The circle of life is that you care for your kids, and when they pee and they poo, and then you get old, and then you pee and they poo, and they take care of you. It's a beautiful, beautiful way of talking about family that is simultaneously terribly cynical. And how could you say that, being a young father? But hilarious and true, and it enriches you. Like that's the thing, I talk all the time about humanism, because I think it's the most important thing that our world is lacking right now, is we're getting more divided into tribalism. And certainly somebody whose father was murdered literally for actual tribalism and colonization, makes sense that he'd be a humanist. But it's essential to understand these are the things that make us human. Taking care of each other, wiping our butts. I'll get into that soon. Like these are all things that all go together. So it's a very life-affirming song about pee-pee, caca, vomit. Pas vraiment is more realism, social commentary, and the disillusionment of love, kind of all together. This is sort of about like the artificiality of celebrity couples, but then it seems like it's also sort of about like his relationship with his wife, probably. Like I would guess that things are not going great with his wife based on how this album sounds. Whole thing starts off with this great dirty flute, which my wife heard, and she's from Yugoslavia, and she said it sounded Slavic. I heard it, and I thought it was South American. I don't know. And do you know who doesn't want us to know? Stromae doesn't want us to know. So, let it go. It's a cool dirty flute. It's not a synthesizer. It's somebody playing it. I can tell this is a really good album, because usually when I do reviews, I'll have one song from the album stuck in my head, and it's hard for me to remember how other songs sound because I have the one song stuck in my head. This one, every time I read the title, I get it stuck in my head. So, pas vraiment. It's great. So it's interesting because it's also sort of about like the maturity of a relation, like it's sort of like a development of Tous les Mêmes off the last album, which is sort of a he said, she said, simple song about like lovers disagreeing. This is much more nuanced. It's about adult relationships. We're seeing that a lot on this album, sort of growth and moving past. The first verse is all about we look so good in photos and in social media. And then we had that instrumental breakdown after every chorus, and it's just so beautiful, this flute sound. I just can't believe how good it is. And I don't even know how good it is yet, because I've only heard it like 15 times, but like, I know as time goes on, just that sound, there's a sort of like a raspy quality, and you can't create this sound on a synthesizer. You just can't. It's just so great. The second verse is the perspective of fans watching this celebrity love. This is talking about the reality of where we all feel like we know what Kim Kardashian and Skeet Davidson are actually like, or we feel like we know, when I was personally upset that Will Arnett and Amy Poehler got divorced, like what the hell am I getting upset about? What do I know about them? Then the third verse, he's about to propose, and then she says, well, I never really loved you. And the whole chorus is just going on and on again about not really loving. Pas vraiment means not really. You're going to hear some beeping. That means the dishes are done. The dishes are done, man. We had a big pancake breakfast. It was nice. And this also includes the first... Stromae does this towards the back half of the album. A lot of sounds, which are just kind of nice and a little bit goofy. And it's kind of a dark album, so it's nice having those sounds. Next song is Riez, which means laugh. It's a command. It's a formal command, like you laugh. Or it's a plural command, like all of you laugh. And it's really nice. He has a very high voice to start off, and this kind of weird boom sound, just really deep rhythms. Just again, just really complicated Afro, Latino, Asia, America, Antarctica. And I'm going to say it. All of the rhythms and musicianship on this song come from Antarctica. They're made by Antarcticans. Antarcticatians. So this is another song where the first time I heard it, I thought, I don't know, it's not very deep. It's about the aspirations of the poor. It's about someone saying how I'm going to have a villa and have my Grammy and all that. And I was like, that's kind of weird of Stromae, somebody who's made it, to kind of make fun of people who are aspirational. But then he gets you. He gets you. He gets you at the end. Because he starts off and this person says, what I dream of is having a Grammy and being rich and having a villa and having a house and having a wife. But by the end, what he dreams of is having a place to sleep tomorrow, is having his papers, is being able to eat, is being able to dream big. Even the ability to dream big is a privilege. If you have next to nothing and you dream of having something, that is a privilege versus somebody who has actual nothing. Amazing. And the chorus of just saying laugh is amazing because it can either be like laugh to the person who's singing, saying like, you have to laugh because life is so bad, or you have to laugh now because you'll cry later, or it's the people who laugh at him for having aspiration, because we always make fun of people. The same way we make fun of celebrity couples and say they're not going to make it, pas vraiment. We also laugh at people who say, I'm going to be a multi-billionaire. Yeah, what's your education? I almost graduated high school. And then there's, in addition to all the Antarctican instruments, it sounds like another maybe Chinese guitar sound or two-stringed instrument. Some like full dance hall beats, more like crazy flutes. I swear to God I hear a tabla. I swear to God I hear an Indian tabla. Not the high one, the ding ding ding, but the low one, ba-doom. I swear I hear it. Maybe I don't hear it. I don't know. I hear an Antarctican tabla. Also, twice in the song, there's random Phil Collins-esque drum hits. Doo-doom! I don't know where they come from. I don't know why they're there. But they add a whole other element to the song, a weird sort of synthetic 1980s synth sound to all of this organic world music that's going on. It's awesome. It's very windy outside. Mon amour, my love, is the next song. And obviously, if it's called My Love, it's about the disillusionment of love. This seems to be the least dynamic, the least multitudinal version of on this album. Because it seems to be almost just straight African sounding. At least that's how it sounds to me. He's working with his brother Luke, and it's just these great rhythms. The first verse, he talks about all the lovers that he's had, Aurélie, and then Emma, and then Emmanuel, and he goes through all these names. And then the ironic chorus, my love, you're the only one, I'll love you forever. So it's after he goes through all of these lovers who he's been with, he then says, oh, but you're the only one, right? So it's making fun of this, but it's going to keep going. There's, I think just a straight guitar. I think it might even be Luke who's playing it. I'm not sure who plays this amazing guitar on here. Or it almost sounds like a pedal steel guitar. Like it has like such like glissando, the way it's played. It's just so fluid. Lots of kind of goofy sounds on this song as well. I think this sort of reminds me spiritually of the song Moule Frite off of his last album. A similar kind of like criticism of love. And then as it goes on, it turns out that he's been cheating on her. And what's funny is he cheats on her and then she leaves him. And then he breaks down. And then he gets sad. And then he feels like he needs to win her back. And then he gets ridiculously jealous. Il en a une plus grosse que moi. He has a bigger one than me. Vous le faites combien de fois par mois? How many times do you do it a month? Et puis, mes slips sont dans quelle armoire? And also, my underwear is in which drawer? So it's this whole idea of like the jealousy of like how big's his, and how often do you? And also, I just need to grab my stuff. And the outro is just pleading for her, like life is unfair. This reminds me of Laisse tomber les filles by Serge Gainsbourg and France Gall. Just sort of like the result of being a womanizer is you're left alone. The last chorus, the voice gets super high, and this is the problem with an album like this is I might forget to address some of the great things. The vocal production on the entire album is just as good as the instrumental production. And there's so many layers and styles throughout here, it's going to take me 9 more years to get to the depths of it, of this multitudinal thing. Déclaration, is a social realist feminist anthem. God damn it, I love this song. More kind of Latin rhythms mixed in with like digitalized backwards sounds throughout. This is his best singing. Beautiful chorus. Just the way he sings it. And like there's this point where like right before he sings the chorus, he says, "We're not born misogynist, we become it." That's a reference to Simone de Beauvoir. One is not born a woman, one becomes it. He's in conversation with his own misogyny, with societal misogyny. And then the whole chorus is about like the way women are mistreated. But of course, you shouldn't wear trousers. That's the beginning of the chorus. True story. My grandmother would not talk to a woman in pants. Just does not exist. I don't see anybody. Funny. So like that. This is the kind of way, and then the chorus is just, it'll all get better. It'll all get better. Irony, an ironic, it will all get better chorus. And then the instrumental break, I thought it was a Chinese guitar, but then I looked up the people who were playing, and it was a Turkish guitar player who got his doctorate in Wisconsin. So I guess it's Turkish guitar, but I don't know enough about music. There's so much to know, Stromae makes you know that. Makes you know there's so much to know. You might be an expert on like 1,000 things, and then you go, what does Turkish guitar sounds like? And you're like, I don't know. You're no longer an expert. Second verse is crucial. So we had like the first one sort of talks about the sexism of language, like referring to God as masculine. The second verse is about the way there's gender bias in medical care. It's about like women being forced to be on birth control. It talks about endometriosis, which is an underdiagnosed condition which many, 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 many women suffer from. And you probably never heard of it. And I had to ask my wife, who is both a scientist and a woman, what it was. And she explained to me this whole thing about the uterine lining, and it's outside of the uterus, and it's a very painful thing that can like lead to like... I never heard of it. Because there's gender bias in medical care. Women are expected to take more pain. Because they push a baby out of their birth canal, we just sort of expect them to be in pain. And Stromae is talking about that. This is that power of social realism. Do you get that? Like, that's the power of it. So he ends it all with a kind of joke saying, I have a higher salary than you, talking about, the income gap. But truly, it's an important song that gets this sense out. And it's delivered in this ironic register, and it's all very postmodern, and all the music is all over the place. But at the end of the day, Stromae is taking his power, is taking his influence, and forcing us to confront sexism in a deeper way. It's not just that we call women the B word, or that they make less money. It's also medical care. It's also the way sex workers are treated. And he's doing a great thing. But he's doing it in such an ironic register half the time that you can barely tell. The final 2 tracks are one track. The final 2 tracks are manic depressive. Mauvaise journée, bonne journée. Bad day, good day. In both cases, he uses irony to the point where you don't really know what's what. You're supposed to make fun of the singer in both songs. It's a happy mask that is stupid and a sad mask that is stupid. It is satirizing depression. It is satirizing happiness. It's all together to make sure that you get, you guessed it, some better understanding of the multitude of the human experience. Mauvaise Journée has these great plodding, thumping rhythms, gorgeous guitar, and starts off talking about wiping his butt for an hour and a half. I told you I'd talk about Rabelais, okay? The best academic work I have ever done, outside of this channel, which I think is the best thing I've ever done as an intellect. But I wrote a paper about Rabelais, because in Rabelais he has an entire letter from a son to a father explaining how he taught himself to wipe his own butt. And he goes through all these different kinds until he eventually lands on the usage of a goose. And I wrote a 20-page paper. It was published in an international journal, Orbis Literarum, all about how this is an intentional choice because the goose is also the same bird that makes a pen, that makes the quill. And so that wiping your butt is the same thing as writing. They're both creations of human beings. So it seems silly, this poop talk, but it's not. Like, human beings are the only creatures that wipe their butt for an hour and a half. I mean, that's how he starts off his description of a bad day. These huge horns, boom, 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 reminds me a little bit of like Godzilla or Biggie, you know, break it down the door, bust in the 4-4, all you heard was Biggie, don't hurt him no more. Amazing chorus. Again, the operatic mode, aidez-moi, help me, leave me alone, it is my right to be left alone, depressed in my sofa. You did it, Stromae, you described depression. Help me, leave me alone, it's my right to be depressed in the sofa. Have you ever been depressed? Have you ever dealt with people who are depressed? Then you recognize that is what depressed people tell you. Please help me, I feel so alone. Now leave me alone, it's my right to be depressed in the sofa. He's singing from experience. The second verse is about confinement, how he's sad about his birthday. Depressive people don't like birthdays because they just get older and older. He says, you know, keep filling my glass because it's half empty, but I'm not a pessimist. More whistling coming back from Santé. The whistling ends up being almost like a leitmotif of the depressive mode of this album, in the same way that Bulgarian chorus becomes a leitmotif of the manic happy side of this album. I just figured that out right now. Feeling good about myself? I feel good about myself. I think that's true. I think that's going to pan out. Smash the like bucket. Subscribe. Because I just made that point. The instrumental break is this, like, what I thought was a mandolin, but I looked it up because it's played by someone named Alfredo Coca. It's like a charango, which is an Andean instrument. I think this guy's from Bolivia. It's just so beautiful the way it sounds. I'm sick of being depressed, and I'm depressed about being sick. And then it ends with this lure of hope for a better tomorrow, but. He says but, and then happy day, good day comes in. It starts off with the sounds of birds singing and trap drums and that charango back again. So the same instrument that was sadness is there and starts right off with a chorus. And it talks about waking up on the right foot and only using that foot to do the dance of joy. Le danse de la joie. And then as he sings Joie, that chorus comes in, that Bulgarian African chorus, the Antarctican chorus comes in and sings along with him. Danse de la joie. And it's so beautiful. It sounds so nice. And then you realize, danse de la joie, aidez-moi, that rhymes. He's rhyming the low point of Mauvaise Journée with the high point of Bonne Journée. Aidez-moi, danse de la joie. Apparently this whole thing is co-written by Orelsan, and we do feel that. We do feel a lot of Orelsan's kind of distanced humanism as well. And here, he talks about having an easy poop. And you even hear the sound of the poop in the toilet. You hear the sound of him grunting about how he didn't even have to wipe. We're back in the Rabelais range, right? The solo, the alone voice of Bad Day is replaced by a huge chorus. He even directly criticizes the person from the Bad Day, because the person in the Bad Day sings the whole thing about how, what's wrong with all these other people? Why are they acting sad when they don't have any real problems? And actually, it's probably my fault. Here he says, if other people's happiness makes you sad, then you just have anger issues, essentially. So he's actually criticizing the other person. The bridge goes into the concept of highs and lows. There's no lows without a high. And we're seeing the multitudes, but also platitudes. Attitude is just a point of view. I don't think we're supposed to take either side of this seriously. I don't think we're supposed to think that it's a good day or a bad day. It is the multitude of days, the highs and the lows, the African and the Asian and the European and the American and the Antarctican. It's all those things all together. It's happy, it's sad. And as long as you are alive, you are unvanquished. Because those sounds that mark this song, when you listen to the album on streaming, which most of us do, and it repeats right back again into Invaincu. The same style of chorus just goes right back. And you're going back again in the cycle of manic, depressive, happy, sad bops. So there it is. There's my review. I can't keep using the word masterpiece or you won't take me seriously, YouTube. I can't help it. COVID's over and artists are here to tell you they are still making great art. So just buckle up and hang out with me, okay? Watch other people too. Everyone's doing great work. Seriously, everyone's doing great work on YouTube right now. I'm not seeing a lot of haters talking about this actually isn't very good. Everything is just awesome. Okay, that's a very happy ending. There's the camera. Oh, no, not yet. My Patreons. You see, I ordered the album, and I was able to order the album because my Patreons give me money to buy music. So okay, I'm gonna have to do this. Okay, I'm gonna have to do this. I'm gonna have to do little credits. I handwrite them, which is kind of cute. But the thing is, I got 43 Patreons now. If you want to be a Patreon, go to patreon.com/Professor Sky. Because jeebus, that's a lot. So thank you to all those people, because that's how I can afford to support these artists. Almost forgot. There's the camera.